Welcome to BS Session 83. Let's get some insights on some gun sights.
But some of these bullets, as you saw, have an incendiary device on the tip of it, which is a heat-seeking device.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Welcome to your weekly dose of BS, the Holistically Speaking podcast.
Almost got rid of my last.
Bueno, muchachos.
Mm-hmm. Hey, remember the good old days when we were so bad at this that we couldn't even figure out like how to push the button on time or how to say the intro properly?
Like it was yesterday, Chris.
Good times. Good times.
We're so sophisticated now.
Aren't we, though? I got a mouthful of food. We're missing one of our co-hosts. And Vanja has no idea what we're going to talk about.
It's all good.
He didn't get the memo?
Well,
Jesus.
In fairness to Vanja, I didn't write the memo.
There was no memo.
There was no memo.
Mm-hmm. I'm okay with it.
I suppose there's that.
Just happy to see you guys.
Oh, there's Mikey. There he is.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, you got really bad static in the background now, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds like we're on a cable TV channel. Oh, it's muted there now. That solved some of it.
Grab the antenna and wiggle it around. It changes your VHF signal.
Yeah, put tin foil around the bunny ears. It helps pick up the signal.
It does. Can confirm. Many years trying to watch The Kids in the Hall with antenna full of foil. You've got absolutely nothing. You still have the static, but you have no more mic.
Yes.
You went
How
the
about
opposite. Now? There, you still have the static, but at least you have Mike back.
Mike, no Mike.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, let's let you figure all that shit out, and let's pay some bills, and then we can actually talk to Vanja about Vanja stuff.
Definitely.
Who's first there, Curdy?
All right. Tonight's episode, as always, brought to you by EM Precision Rifles in Leduc, Alberta. Building Canada's finest precision rifles. Find Shane and Steve on Facebook, Instagram, and on their website at emprifles.ca.
We're brought to you also by Bolt Action Coffee, bringing specialty coffee to the precision shooting world. Order coffee and merchandise at boltactioncoffee.com.
And call sign 66, Canada's best rifle training. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Book a course now at callsign66.ca and follow them on Instagram at callsign66 and on Facebook at CS66 or C/S66. Well, this would be Mike's turn. Mike's having some problems.
Is it? Oh, okay.
You go
Sorry,
ahead.
I got one screen tonight. It kind of sucks. So, we're here today as well, due to the help of Odell Engineering. Smooth.
That's true.
Yeah. Pick up a Canuck shotgun or Bergara rifle from your local distributor and tell them Phil sent you. Look them up on Instagram, Flakebook, and on their website at odellengineeringltd.com.
Ooh, we know these next guys.
Yes, we're also brought to you by Apex Optics, our special guest of the evening.
Don't screw it up,
Honorable
Derek. He's listening.
guest. Don't worry. No pressure. You just gave me like a couple paragraphs to read. So when you buy Apex, precision comes standard. Check out all the fine competition rifle scopes, red dots, and binoculars at apexoptics.co. Be sure to check out the pre-sale special for the new Apex Optics binoculars and red dots. We got the Summit 8x42 binos, the Summit 15x56 binos, the Summit Pro 2 15x56 binos with TR2 reticle, the Summit ED2 15x56 binos with double extra low dispersion lenses, the Atom Red Dot 1x28 equipped with Smart Light auto brightness technology, and the Fusion Red Dot 1x30 with a variable dot size multi-reticle system.
I swear to
Hey, that
God, I
wasn't
did
so
not make
bad.
you say that.
Okay, good. Well, I have a beef to pick with Chris and Rooster now. So
That's right.
I don't
Yeah,
know, man. It's
write a
all, it's
letter.
all part of the
That's
test.
what I
yeah.
recommend.
okay.
Now, if
How's
you
my
go-
audio now?
You're good now, Mike. Yeah, you're
Oh,
good.
there we
Yeah.
go.
So if you go to Derek, if you go to bspodcast.ca, about halfway down, there's a button that says "Don't like what you see." Click here to for our complaints
okay.
department. That actually is on the website. You feel free to click on there, and Vanya's doing it right now, isn't he? You can file a complaint with the appropriate department on that website right there. Vanya, don't tell them what it leads to.
Yep.
Okay. Mike, you got the next one? Do you know where we are?
I think we're at Ripstone Gunsmithing, craftsmanship done right. Contact Oscar at ripstonegunsmithing.ca and breathe life back into any firearm.
Yes, we are. Oh, wait. That was supposed to be me, wasn't it?
Yeah, that is definitely you.
Here I am shirking my responsibilities, but that's okay because we're also brought to you by the Shooting Edge in Calgary, Alberta, home of the Sterling Arms R18, an indoor range, training courses, a new 6-lane axe throwing bay, and the One Shot One Spill Cafe. And that's in addition to everything else that you could need for your shooting activities. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and on their website at theshootingedge.com.
And finally, we have March Scopes Canada. The Dion Optical Design line of rifle scopes has a scope for all your hunting and shooting needs. Find Doug and Niza at marchscopes.ca. There's getting to be more and more of those March Scopes out there. I was just having a talk with Shane with EM Precision today, and he's got, I think he has a High Master, what is it, a 5-42, or a couple of them maybe. Anyways, he's using that for F class this year. I believe Carey is using one as well. And anytime you see Yenzi and me out with our ELR rifles, come have a look through the 6-60 Genesis scopes. And of course, we'll have some Apex optic scopes there too,
Well, it goes without saying.
in our whole herd of rifles that we carry around.
Speaking of F class, did you know that the Canadian Championships are being held in Nokomis?
I think I did hear that. Is
I
it
did not
Canadian
know
or
that.
Westerns?
I think they said Canadians, 2024
Okay.
Canadians.
Oh, that's
We
cool.
got an email the other day from a listener who I don't often say the listeners' names that email us, but thank you for emailing us and listening to the show. But he was wondering if we were going to go out to the Canadian Nationals in Nokomis because it's only like, it's like hour and 45, give or take, from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't know when it was, and now it's in July when I can't go.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Yep. Finally have an event in Saskatchewan where I don't have to leave the province and can't do her.
When is it? Is it next year or this year?
July this year. Was it 13th or 15th? I can't remember. It was either 13th, 14th, or 13th, 14th, 15th, or 14th, 15th, 16th, or 16th, 17th. It's mid-July.
Holy.
It's a very busy week.
Yes. There's an important event happening at the exact same time.
I was going to say, it
Well,
conflicts a little bit.
Maybe
yeah.
Vanya would care to tell us about it.
That's an awesome segue, by the way. Yeah.
Go for it. Do it.
Yeah, so we're holding our Apex Rocky Mountain Challenge. It's our PRS sanctioned 2-day match here in Calgary. So we're kind of in the midst of the whole planning thing right now. It's kind of preoccupied all of us right now. I mean, we just came back from Dallas. We were at the NRA show as well down there, and we can get into that a little bit later. I got some interesting tidbits from there, but yeah, no, we're super excited to host a match here. It's been a roller coaster ride for us as well to get this here after a couple of years of negotiation. A lot of people were like, yeah, you know, anybody can hold a match out there. It is. Yep.
No problem. However,
I don't mean to interrupt, but it does kind of look like Jesus is holding a Star Wars blaster.
Totally.
I love AI. It's
No
so
context for anybody listening, but yeah.
Our listeners don't need context. All they know is that Jesus is holding a Star Wars blaster and he's about to put down some Roman troopers. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, 100%. You know,
Sorry, carry on.
yeah.
I-
Maybe he can show up with that blaster at our PRS match. See if he can clean a state or two.
he just does this, flicks the bullets downrange.
No need
They,
to hold point two
Mhm.
for Jesus. Yeah.
No.
yeah. Well, we need to hold point two for Jesus.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to hold point two for himself.
That's right. Yeah, no. So, just I mean, overall, yeah, we're pretty psyched about the match. It's been, like I said, a couple of years in the works. A lot of people were always talking to us about, yeah, I wish there was a match. There was no more matches in Western Canada. I wish there was a PRS match that I could go to. That's not like an 8-hour trip away or 8 to 13 hours drive from Calgary or Saskatoon or wherever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of hanging and hawing about it, and I think the last match was in 2021, which is the Canadian Sharpshooter Classic. That was over at Rob Furlong's facility here in Southern Alberta by Hannah, and I shot that one. That was actually one of my first PRS sanctioned matches that I ever shot, and it was great. It was a fantastic time. It was such a great match, and I know there were always kind of scheduling conflicts between that facility and kind of the all the things that he does on a day-to-day basis with all the training and classes that he puts on for both civilians and law enforcement. So it kind of came down to a few other guys, I believe, have attempted to kind of revive it over the last few years to try to bring it back. I know COVID obviously didn't help, but there were a couple people that had tried to do it either in Saskatchewan or Manitoba or Alberta, and it just kind of never came to it. So, instead of us trying to revive the Canadian Sharpshooter Classic itself, there's always room for somebody else to bring that in. We just figured, let's just do our own thing and have a match that, is a signature match for Canada. A lot of Americans are looking to come up for it. A lot of the top shooters of the States, we sat down, we chatted with a bunch of them when we were at the NRL Hunter match a few weeks ago at the Beckley Ranch there in BC. And, everybody's really excited about it. A lot of guys had already showed me their phone. They're like, yeah, it's in my calendar, the Apex match in Calgary. And so many people are excited to come up, and one of the main things that we really want to do is, not just bring the PRS back into Canada, but to have a qualifying match, because with the Canadian Precision Rifle Association and as everybody knows, Carly's on the board there as well, but they were kind of trying to figure out ways to standardize scoring, standardize match quality, and standardize the rules that everybody's shooting across, because all the different rules and all the outlaw kind of matches that we have that are 2 days all across Western Canada, they for the most part probably already have the same rules. So now it's just a matter of how do you select a national team to represent Canada for Worlds if you don't have a standardized rule set, if you don't have a standardized scoring system. And so we're like, well, you know what, let's just make ours a PRS sanctioned match, and that way that's one of the ways that people can qualify without having to necessarily travel out of the country to do that. So we're hoping that more matches pop up as a result of that. I know we've been talking to a bunch of other match directors across the country and trying to get them on board, because there's really no other impediment to host a 2-day or even a club level match. If you want to be part of their Precision Rifle series, it's the requirements, the barrier to entry is extremely low. So I think hopefully we can start the ball rolling on that and make a whole bunch more standardized matches. And obviously seeing the NRL Hunter series come with 2 matches in Canada this year is amazing. And I'm hoping to shoot the second one as well next month. And yeah, it's an exciting time to be a shooter in Canada, or in precision rifle sports anyway, because there's more and more stuff coming. And yeah, we're pretty excited and privileged to be able to bring it back, and it's going to be a fun weekend.
We've talked about this before on the show. Like the great thing about shooting is the diversity of shooting, and so often I think we get caught up in our own preferred style of shooting, and it's oh, this is better, this is better, this is the best, this is real shooting, this is real that, and it exists in other industries as well. I mean, I could regale you with all of the idiotic stories about how Muay Thai is bullshit, do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just a bunch of men hugging each other, do MMA, but
Human
the
nature.
strength, yeah, but the strength of firearms is the diversity of it. And if they want to, they being, we know who we're talking about, the sock puppet and his Groucho or Grouchy Muppets, that's the word I was looking for. If they want to stomp on the necks of certain types of shooters, while we're fighting that, because I'm certainly not advocating that we shouldn't fight against that sort of injustice, but there's always other types of shooting. There's always other types of competition. PRS is like, if I hadn't met you guys and kind of got into this whole circle, I would never have even tried PRS. It was never something that even remotely interested me. I always liked the blasty of semi-automatics. But
You're a perpetual maple cedar.
yeah, the plinky of 22s.
I was thinking Magnum, Chris.
Yes.
I'm Mr. Spray and Pray. But even though I'm not super interested in competing in PRS, I really, really enjoy going to the range and shooting steel at all these different ranges, from 300 to, how far does yours go, Rooster? The 1.3 or 1.1?
Just short of 1.2 kilometers.
Just short of 1.2 kilometers. So yeah. And the reality is, even if it got worse than it is today, we can always transition to something so that we never have to sit at home twiddling our thumbs, getting angry at the world. We can always go pull a trigger.
Wait, you guys don't do that?
Well, I mean, we don't have to, is what I'm saying.
I try and incorporate that into almost every part of my life. Not the sitting at home part necessarily, but
that's my really long-winded way of saying that, hey, for God's sake, PRS is growing and it's fun, and do it.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, so we talk to people all across North America and the world, and it's a worldwide fact that the precision rifle sports, whether it's a PRS discipline, whether it's NRL Hunter, whether it's any of the variations in between, whether it's centerfire or rimfire, that kind of entity together is the fastest growing monolithic group of shooters in the world. Like standard across the world, no questions asked. So that's something that has to be acknowledged, honestly, not just politically in the country, but also from an advocacy perspective, from a firearms retailer perspective, because they probably have to shift a little bit in some of this inventory that they carry, where they maybe cater more to traditional hunters or just kind of regular firearms owner that just go and play once or twice a year, or sometimes in the summer when they're out camping or something, right? So I think there are lots of specialty stores across the country, but I think we're going to start seeing a lot more kind of the general purpose, smaller independent shops carrying a lot more of this gear in the coming years, because I mean that the demand is there for it. So that's been something that's been fairly evident to us, not just in Canada, but also in the US, where we come across, like we were just at the NRA show, and then the sheer number of people who came by the booth that we could talk kind of precision rifle stuff. Guys would come out the booth and start talking like head spacing on barrels. I'm like, where am I? Like, it's crazy, right? Like it's ubiquitous now. The people are getting, like, the technology has gotten so good. The products have gotten so good. Like the barrel manufacturers have stepped up their game over the last decade, right? And everybody else has really had to advance the technology. So now we're seeing kind of in the general shooting population, there's way more knowledge than there ever was before. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. It is. And it helps that you've got, these massive celebrity presences that are interested in the long range precision sports, such as, big names like Eric Cortina and Kurt Rouse and Derek and Mike. And oh man, I could go on for forever.
All these big names,
all these massive celebrity talents that are in the ear of the average person now,
For sure. And I'll give you like Colion Noir out of Texas, right, in the States. Like, he's a very prominent personality. I think he shot his first PRS match last year at the Gap Grind.
Yeah, right? I remember. Yeah. And prior to that, he was like 100% what JR so aptly refers to as blinky blaster.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that's one of the things, and I think to one of the points that one of the people commented is, yes, it's still a very relatively low percentage of people who compete, or who will go and try out a match. But one of the things in talking to Travis from NRL Hunter is that his entire market is not like guys that want to compete in PRS or precision rifle disciplines. His goal is to attract hunters. He wants hunters to come and try shooting his match. You don't have to compete for points or anything like that. You can enter in the skill stage, but come and shoot it, try it out, and see where your shortfalls are as a hunter from a skill perspective, whether it's workflow, whether it's like fundamentals or building a position or shooting off of a fence post or anything along those lines, right? So that particular sport, I think, is catered to the more of the general wider shooting public than it is to like guys who like to nerd out about shooting it to a mile or shooting off barricades out to 1200 or any of that kind of stuff, or shooting movers and whatever else.
Right.
So I think there's a good crossover there that NRL Hunter's trying to reach, and I think they've seen massive growth just in the last couple of years because the sheer number of matches that they're hosting has almost doubled in the last 2 or 3 years, and now they're expanding into the eastern US and hopefully into eastern Canada next year and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a huge appeal to anybody who ever wants to like improve their skill set, at least test themselves, because most hunters that I've talked to at trade shows, they're like, oh yeah, I'm not really comfortable taking a shot at an animal, and anything inside of like 200 yards I'm fine, but anything past that, kind of start to question it, because they have a classic reticle that's like just a simple duplex reticle or BDC, and they don't even know how to necessarily use the BDC, right? So cap turrets, second focal plane, which is totally fine. Every configuration has its kind of fit for purpose use, but there's a huge massive population of different styles of shooting. Like for example, like I came from a completely different style of competing as well, and so did Carly. Like we shot shotgun together, not really competitively, but just we started shooting sporting clays, and then we switched into pistols, and we did Steel Challenge. I did IPSC, USPSA. I never tried IDPA, but that always seemed a little bit slower because I was running and gunning anyway, so it didn't really make sense to kind of go yet another thing. But then tried out 3-to-gun for a couple of matches and stuff like that, and built up all these rigs, and then things got banned, and then kind of moved into more of the bolt action gun stuff. So I totally understand all the different perspectives, all that stuff, which is why we made Red Dots, right? Because of our history of competing with pistol sports. So it was kind of like a natural fit there.
There's an interesting comment here. You kind of posted one comment in two, so I'm going to highlight them both and then we can all discuss it. But the problem says, precision type shooting may be on the rise, but sport/comp shooting is still a very low percentage of gun owners in general. The second comment he says is, barrier is still not enough events and limited number of spots per, I believe that's supposed to mean event. That's an interesting comment. It's funny. I was listening to, and you know what, because we believe in shouting out everybody in Canadian gun media, Modern Shooter podcast. I was listening to Pat talking with Adriel, the episode that they were kind of talking about the challenges of competition in Canada, and they made the same point that the problem is making here, that we have a very large geographical country with a very low density of people. And so, for example, I just at the beginning of this episode, I was saying like, there's finally a competition that really, in the province, and I'm not even going to be in the province for it. But other than that, like, in the last couple of years, we've tried to cover Sapril, that's in Alberta, King of 2 Miles, that's in Alberta. Like a lot of all the stuff we have to drive to the province adjacent, and I think a lot of people are in that situation, even within their own province. Some guy in Edmonton wants to compete in Sapril. Well, that's a pretty decent drive.
That's a 5 or 6 hour drive, right? For sure.
Yeah, and I said you guys could discuss it, and then I just fucking took up all the air in the room, so now I'm going to shut up and let you guys finish discussing it.
Well, yeah, and I think that is one of the reasons why people are traveling to the U.S. to shoot. Right, we don't have enough matches up here that if you want to shoot every weekend in the States, you can, and within like a 3-hour drive for the most part. Some guys have to drive up to 6, 7, whatever, but it's. If you're in the Northeast U.S., where we're actually the title sponsor, so we talk to those guys quite a bit when we're out there, and those guys literally shoot every weekend. It's like, oh yeah, within an hour and a half, 2-hour drive, I can go shoot every weekend, whether it's rimfire, centerfire, one day switch to the next, and yeah, so it then they have a massive number of shooters that are down there. So yeah, I think geographically we have a population density problem. I mean, there's what 2.23 million gun owners in Canada total, and out of people who would ever shoot a match is like probably like less than 5% of those people. Maybe I'm just guessing, but it's not a massive population number to start with, right? And then I mean, if you think about the number of gun owners in the U.S. as the largest probably gun owning population in the entire world, like they've got a pretty good starting point on the rest of us with their 10 times the size of Canada population wise. So
yeah, bit of a leg up, yeah.
yeah. But there's a
Phil Foxtrot.
I was just going to say, sorry, and there's a massive gap in the Western U.S. for matches, for example, right? So if you go down, I think between kind of Eastern Montana and probably Idaho, and then south down towards Colorado, there's maybe like a handful of matches for the
lower density population of the U.S.
Again, yeah, same deal.
Mm-hmm.
I just look at traveling to the States as I could shoot maybe 3 matches here, or I could shoot 1 match down there for the same price. By the time you take in travel and all that other stuff, it makes it less appealing to go down to the States.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is
especially with the exchange.
Especially with
I'll
like
give you one example.
expenses.
I'll give you one example of that apart from the exchange itself. But I mean, the somebody mentioned about the 2-day event cost down there, and it's I think the average match for a 2-day Pro Series PRS, let's call it, is I think 300 to 350 US per match, whereas our PRS match is I think 300 Canadian. So it works out to like $100 less after exchange rate at the very minimum, right? So a lot of the guys in the States are like, oh, that's a cheap weekend because my dollar to travel up there goes 40% further, and the match fee is way cheaper. So yeah, why the hell not?
Okay, I want to talk about that for a second, but I don't know if now is the right time. I don't want to take up the whole show. We do have 5 of us here, but does anybody else want to say anything about the matches before I segue us?
I just want to touch base. I know that it's not just a match happening that you guys are hosting. You guys are kind of having a little special Saturday night shindig.
Yeah,
one could say.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I totally kind of forgot about that too. But we've got so it's kind of like we're trying to make it a match weekend, kind of a social gathering. We always kind of see this as a community event, something that we all kind of get together and socialize after everybody's done either checking their rifles and sighting in and whatever. So on the Friday, we're going to be doing a beer garden kind of welcome party after everybody's done with their firearms. So if you come in, check in, sign in, you'll get your match book, go sight in your rifle. There'll be a test range where you can go out to like 500 or 600 yards on some steel and check your dope and make sure your data's correct. Your rifle's functioning as expected. Lock it up. You're done for the day. Put it away in your truck. Then come have a beer or a pop or a water, whatever you feel like. And then that'll be an opportunity for us to everybody kind of get together. There'll be some music and whatever else. And then you can go on your merry way in the evening afterwards and just go and come back the next morning, shoot the match on day 1. On the evening of the first day on a Saturday night, we're actually going to have a live band playing. We're going to have a dinner.
A live band?
Yeah, a live band. And it's actually a fairly, no strippers, Yen. You bring your own.
Unless he volunteers.
Yeah, I was going to say Jens was offering, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, so the band that's playing is called Dangerous Goods. They're kind of like a fairly relatively famous, a local kind of cover band. They do lots of really music. Carly actually had some involvement with them way back in the day. So she used to be the lead singer of that band back in the day. And this was many years ago.
Wait a minute. Carly the rocker?
She
Vanya,
definitely... Yeah.
Vanya, if you have like old Polaroid photos from her gigs, that needs to be shared with the world.
I don't know if she would appreciate that. So
she probably wouldn't, but I'm not asking if she would though.
There may be some videos and or photos. Yeah.
Oh man, videos would be even better. Some old VHS tapes, or is this 2000s?
No, it was in the 2000s, so it wouldn't be VHS. Yeah.
Good. So it's digital, is what you're saying.
Yes, yes.
It puts a whole new meaning to the song "I Knew the Bride When She Used to Rock and Roll"
Yeah,
when you guys got married.
that's right. Yeah, no, so for sure. Yeah, so she sang in that band for a bunch of years. I remember we used to go all over kind of southern Alberta, play Christmas parties, corporate parties, pubs across Banff, and that kind of stuff. So it was good, good little reminiscence there. But yeah, no. So she got in touch with the guys because they still kind of kept going, and they're like, "You guys busy during Stampede last weekend of Stampede? You want to come do this event?" And they're like, "Hell yeah!" And that's kind of how it happens. So there'll be a live band. There'll be food. There's I think with the match fee, you're getting dinner, and basically, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're trying to make it a fun event. Nothing that gets out of hand, obviously, but just we just bring the community back together and kind of celebrate the fact that the PRS Pro Series is back in Canada, and then just and then shoot the match on the Sunday, and we're gonna have a pretty significant prize table. The PRS headquarters has sent us a whole bunch of prizes from their U.S. sponsors, and that's going to be that. I was going through the certificates there last week, and that's fairly significant. The only thing that I'm questioning whether we're going to be able to dish out or not are the suppressors that they're giving away, but I don't think we'll be able to get that across the border. But
Might be some horse trading going on.
Yeah, for sure. And no, it's gonna be fantastic. I think we're gonna have over $30,000 in prizes on the table. So
cool.
Significant, and we're hoping to get anywhere between 120 to 150 shooters, which will make it the largest PRS match in Canada. So
wow,
that's very cool. Yeah.
Shameless plug. 8th place is going to be sponsored by Banyak Precision, also known as the Ocho Award.
That's right.
So if you don't make top 5, go for 8th place. We got a special prize for you.
And I was going to say, doing the social community thing, that both Ballistically Speaking and BSPN 8 the Ocho will be on site. So you'll have people will have an opportunity at 15 minutes of fame as well.
Yeah, that's the goal at least.
Yeah. Okay, before moving on, I have to point out Jens pointing out my hypocrisy. Because I'm talking about going to Alberta for matches. He is absolutely right. The Saskatoon Rifle and Revolver Club hosts a lot of matches for 22. A lot of like ORPS and CRPS style stuff. They absolutely do, and I do not compete in them. So I'm a hypocrite, and I'll admit it. Okay, so I wanted to talk about cost. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about this or not. So this has been an issue for me for a long time. Why can I go to, let's say, Staples and buy a 5,000 denier, synthetic woven computer bag for travel and spend $59 on that computer bag? But to have a shooting bag that is a fraction of the size and a fraction of the complexity to build and manufacture, and sometimes not even 5,000 denier, maybe it's only a 3,000 denier, and it's filled with synthetic beans. It has no leather, no zippers, none of that. Why is it like $89?
Or 150.
Or 150.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you from filling a pencil case full of plastic beads and using that.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Staples. I'm going to get a pencil case and I'm going to fill it with lima beans.
I did it a long time ago when guys were just using socks with sand in them.
Yeah.
I thought there's got to be a better way. And I just happened to be, I don't know, in Staples or Walmart or something like that, and saw this cool pencil case that was kind of rugged. And I took it home and filled it with stuff and used that.
And it worked.
You can stuff your socks. That tells you how old I am.
Yeah, I mean, I could stuff my socks, but ain't nobody got time for that. We have to admit, though, there are certain things in our industry that are creating price barriers to entry that don't seem to have much justification for it. And I'm talking mostly about accessories.
So I have a funny story about that from Pennsylvania last year. So
Okay.
I walk up to the firing line and I'm like, "What the hell is that noise?" And it was a ring fire match. So I wasn't wearing ear pro, but I hear this like high pitched hum, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and all you hear is just like 22s going off. But there's like this weird high pitched hum, something going on. I'm like, "What is that?" And I'm talking to one of the guys. They're like, "Oh, that's my barrel cooler."
A barrel cooler
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for a 22. So
For a 22.
for a 22.
yeah.
At
But
least tell me it was a
Oh
Magnum.
goodness.
So the funny
Mm.
part about that, it wasn't the fact that it was a barrel cooler for a 22. I've seen barrel coolers online before, and they're usually like 50, 60, 70 bucks, something like whatever it is, right? And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, this is my Amazon special barrel cooler." He literally got a fan that was like small battery powered, like lasts for days, and he rigged it up to fit inside the chamber, and it was cooling his barrel. And he's like, "That's a $5 product right there. And if I were to buy it right now because it's made for guns, 80
Yeah.
bucks all day long."
That's what I'm saying. So, I keep highlighting the problem, but no pun intended. But he says because they sell thousands of computer bags and a few of shooting bags. First of all, I don't think that that's accurate. Second of all, and Vanya, you feel free to chime in here if you want. I'm not going to speak for you. I'm going to speak for myself. I run a single small business martial arts gym. My wife and I own it, and our we have one business partner who is our protege, who is slowly buying into it to take over. We're not talking about a massive operation. I'm not a chain. I'm not a franchise. Nothing. Okay, just a little mom and pop shop in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, city of 300,000 people. I sell my own karate and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu gis. When you come to my academy, you get your membership. You can buy your Jiu Jitsu gi, comes with the belt. The belt has my logo on it. The Jiu Jitsu gi has my logos all over it, has our team logo on it, and it's all embroidered and it looks just as good, just as professional as any brand name gi you're going to buy out there, whether it's Hayabusa or Fuji or anybody. Okay. And I buy only a few hundred of those to sell every year. Not massive quantities, not like, and some people may not recognize the brand names, but it doesn't matter, but not like Hayabusa that's selling thousands upon thousands upon thousands of gis a year, or Origin even, who's, selling thousands of them. And I'm able to sell those jujitsu gis at a competitive price to all of the other big brand names out there. In fact, I sell them cheaper than you can buy an Origin gi for. And I think that this whole, like, they sell thousands of them and we sell a little bit of them, is used as a blanket excuse for why things are more expensive in some cases, but it is not universally true. If we're talking
Not
about
universally true, but you can't dismiss it completely.
no,
I get what
completely
you're saying,
understand.
Chris, but
Yeah.
Completely
there
understand.
is some validity to it.
If we're talking about things that require computer chips, electronics, all of that, I think that's still very true by a large margin in that industry. I think when we're talking about textiles, it is bullshit, and I'm saying that as somebody who buys things in the textiles industry. I think that there is very little excuse for a polyvinyl woven shooting bag to be $150.
So I know there are lots of independent shooting bag companies that make products for this sport and other sports, right? So,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I think of WeBat. I think there's, obviously MDT's doing it now as part of their acquisition of that. The
There's a
company that was
Boss
based in
Gear of
Canada,
Ontario. He's just
there's
he's a match
Armageddon Gear.
director. Yeah.
Yeah, Boss Gear, obviously out of Canada. But then there's Armageddon Gear. There's Area 419 that pairs up with them on some collaborations, right? So, I mean, AG, like Armageddon Gear, has started out as a 1 or 2 person operation, and now they have like 50 employees or whatever the number is. But they're huge now, and they sponsor the AG Cup and they invest in all this other sponsorship of all the shooting sports. So it's Coltac. Yeah, that's a great point.
Mhm.
And they're another made in the USA company, right? And made in North America. So
Mhm.
they're making products that people want and people are willing to pay for certain quality. Now you go, okay, material costs, input costs, operating costs, they all have their own buildings, they have to buy all the machinery,
Yep.
their startup costs, right? All that
Absolutely.
stuff has to be paid for somehow.
Mhm.
So that all goes into it. If you want to offshore everything to facilities that already have the capacity to do that stuff, you would probably cut that cost by a 10, like a
Mhm.
factor of 10, I would imagine.
Mhm.
Right.
And
So,
that makes perfect sense to me. I analogize it back again. So I'm having my stuff made overseas. You look at Origin. That's Jocko Willink. Well, he's involved
right.
with Origin. They make Brazilian jiu-jitsu gis. Everybody knows their hunting gear and all that sort of stuff, but they make jiu-jitsu gis as well. And they're all made in the United States. The cotton is grown in the United States. They weave the cotton in their factories, and they cut them. They make them, the whole from start to finish is all made in the U.S. And I sell my jiu-jitsu gi in Canadian dollars for approximately what Origin sells them for in American dollars.
Right.
And that makes perfect sense to me. And I've purchased Origin Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gis, and I've purchased them specifically because I know I've toured their factory in Maine. I know that they are made 100% in the United States from start to finish. In fact, even more to the point, they purchased Toyota loom and sewing machines that were originally in America and were being sold to a Chinese company because the company was going under, and Origin came in and undercut the people and purchased them from underneath the Chinese company, and basically took them off the boat as they were about to be shipped over to China and kept them in the United States to be used there.
Which
And
is
I
an
will pay
amazing
a
story.
premium for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely it is. And it's the
Mm.
story that we were told by the owner's father-in-law when we were touring the factory, and it's an amazing story. And it made me. I'm wearing Origin. Well, I'm wearing Origin blue jeans right now. Like I've purchased a lot of stuff because of that, and I will pay a premium for that. But and there are definitely companies doing that. You just named a few. They're not all doing that. They're not all doing that, and there are a lot of major brand name products that are being made overseas that are just as priced, in the same market as things that should be your premium quality product.
It comes down to, as a consumer, which one do you want to support, right?
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
Mhm.
right.
Yeah,
So,
you're
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
well, I'll make one distinction too. I mean, we're talking textiles, shooting bags, but then there's other examples where there is an increased cost burden on the manufacturer for certain things like testing, certifications, safety compliance, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera, et cetera, like material science compliance with chemicals, all that kind of stuff, right? So that part of it is an additional burden on the manufacturer to that increases costs, right? So
For sure.
I
Yeah.
don't think that applies in every instance, but on some of them there are, right? So when we're
Hmm.
talking, I don't know, lower and upper receivers and all that kind of stuff, I don't think that really applies all that much because that's fairly straightforward. They do their own internal testing. I don't think the ATF goes in and says, "Yeah, prove it's safe." But for things like electronic components, thermal imaging, computer chips and that kind of stuff, that there's definitely additional cost there. Now, we
Hmm.
are seeing a massive reshoring of that kind of stuff to North America. I know that Mexico is becoming extremely popular with manufacturers to bring it back
Hmm.
into North American control and sphere of
Hmm.
influence.
Hmm.
So that's a good thing. I know there's a lot of stuff coming back into the US and Canada, and that's an
I
amazing
also know
thing.
that China is pivoting very heavily to try and counter that as well. That trend.
Yeah, and I would
Mhm.
think last week, just before we went down to Dallas for NRA. I believe President Biden Congress passed a law, and he signed it into law that there's an extra duty on, I think, between 10 and 14%,
Mm.
just tariff on any electronic components coming into China. And I think it's specifically hitting like thermal sensors, like so for thermal imaging and cameras and night vision scopes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's anything coming out of China is now going to cost between 10 to 15% more at a minimum before it even hits the consumer. So
Right.
that means that it's probably going to increase in price between 30 and 50%.
And yeah. Well, and that at minimum, right? Not to mention that CBSA has taken over importer business licensing. And they say that it's supposed to make things more efficient, more cost effective for Canadian importers, but I'm not
I don't believe it.
confident that it will.
What does the CBSA know about efficiency?
Were you aware of that, Vanya?
Yeah, they implemented that new system. I forget what it's called, but our broker
They just
had to sign up for it.
yeah, they just extended the the implementation period back to October on it. Do you think
It's
that it'll actually make it
streamlined.
cheaper, or that's what they say? Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. Anytime the government gets involved, I get weary because everything
I know, right?
is expensive and takes way longer.
But
Don't
this
recommend.
is the weird part about it, though, is that it's really just a lateral handoff from CRA handling it to CBSA handling it. So, which bureaucracy is more efficient?
Yeah, I
Neither.
don't know. Comment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to comment because you don't want to lose your importer's license.
I just don't want anybody coming after me.
Oh, maybe I should shut up so I don't lose mine.
So speaking of new products coming into the country,
Yeah,
you got some new products. A few of them that
Derek's
you made me read.
He's desperately trying to segue away from this. I do feel like I was swimming upstream on this. I do feel like I'm not getting a lot of support from the rest of the panel on my opinion on this. Notice how I'm not allowing us to segue.
Chris, is things are expensive.
Yeah, well, that's true. But that's kind of my point too. There are a lot of things to get into shooting that are legitimately expensive, without having some illegitimate expenses.
Well, even if you don't ever want to compete, like let's say you never want to travel, you never want to have to go pay match fees or stay in hotels or anything like that. Fine, that's okay. But even just to get a good precision rifle, like let's say you go to Shane and Steve or any of the gunsmiths that support the show, and you go, "Hey, build me a custom rifle that just is a tack driver that I can hit out to whatever distance you want to hit out to, whether it's long range or ELR, or extreme long range or ultra long range or whatever you want to call it." That's going to set you back a good amount of money before you even put a glass on it, before you even get a bipod and a whatever else you want to do, and before you even get ammo for it, right? So that's a significant investment in and of itself. Now, yes, you can do it with like probably an $800 Remington 700, whatever, and you'll have relatively good success right off the bat. But if you want to print those super tight groups, then that's probably not the right rifle to do it with. But
that's a little bit apples and oranges, though, Vanya, because if you have EM Precision make you a rifle, first of all, very often they're using IBI barrels made in Canada.
Yep.
North American manufactured. And secondly, there's a lot of like when these guys are spinning these barrels on and making these rifles, like Shane and Steve, guys like Shane and Steve, with EM and other companies that are doing the same things. It's as much of an art form as it is just simple manufacturing. There's a lot of skill and precision that goes into this, and that again, that comes down to the category of paying for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's why I say
low volume, skilled craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Versus
So
high
that up in a
production.
CNC machine and run it all day long without ever having to check into it
right.
It requires human intervention, right? So it can't be mass produced necessarily at that precision
for
level,
sure.
right?
And it seems to me like that is expensive, and it should be expensive. You're paying for human skill and labor. And in the case of EM, you're paying for human skill and labor that is using, whenever possible, premium, like internationally premium Canadian manufactured parts,
100%.
And they use MDT chassis so often. They use IBI barrels so often. They use a lot of Trigger Tech triggers. They use a lot of different actions, including Canadian made actions.
Yeah.
And that's before we even talk about the skill to put them all together. Because I'll tell you what, I could buy all of those individual components too. You don't want to shoot the fucking rifle I'm going to put together with it. You know what I mean? And that I
I've
think
seen
that's
your
maybe,
ammunition, Chris.
Yeah, exact courtesy.
I don't want you anywhere near a machine
Yeah, that is a fair point.
or a measuring tool.
And I
Yeah.
suppose I won't kick the dead horse any further. I'll just sum it up by saying that like all of those things are already so expensive, and they're a barrier to entry, but they're, I think, a very legitimate barrier to entry. And I think some other things don't necessarily need to be such a barrier.
For sure. Yep. But I will say one comment that I received, and I can't remember what example somebody said, but they said, "Oh, you think this hobby's expensive? Wait for ... And I was like, "Yeah, it's like $50,000 barrier to entry for just this one little hobby." I was like, "Yeah, I guess that kind of puts it into perspective."
Yeah, let's be real. Most hobbies, like even thinking of a hobby like fishing, it's like, oh, that's pretty simple. You need a rod and a tackle box. It's like, well, now you're buying a boat. Now you're buying a truck to haul a boat, insurance, fuel. Where you're going to park the boat in the wintertime. Oh, now you got to drive to this lake. Oh, you got to buy into this tournament. So let's just be
Don't
real.
forget the fancy chest
fish finder.
waders, and you've got to have the best chest waders out there because your neighbor has some good ones, but I got better ones.
So the problem is keeping up with the Joneses is what you're talking about.
Well, there's an element of that for sure.
You know what?
Universal problem.
The most expensive part of that is the fish finder you can find a Soviet submarine with.
I had one of those on my boat. Like the 3D sonar and everything, right? Yeah.
Well, it's like a video game now.
That settles it. I'm going to do an NRL match next year, and I'm going to show up with a couple of socks tied into a knot with kidney beans for my bench rest, and I'm gonna have Rooster spotting me through like multiple pairs of spectacles just on a
Get a
hook.
sextant.
Wearing
Just a
chest
sextant.
waders.
Yeah, well, yeah, and he's gonna wear chest waders with a Hawaiian print on them.
That's it.
Plan.
Okay,
Derek, we're definitely filming that.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely will. Yeah.
But back to Derek's question, new products. Yeah, we got. So we're really thrilled with our new binoculars. So the Summit ED2s, which are the 15 by 56, kind of the non-reticle version, they are probably honestly, I'm very biased and I'll admit it, but I'm going to say that's probably some of the best binoculars people are going to look through in their lifetime to this date until we develop the next cool thing. But these binos were in development for us for about 18 months, 16 months or so. And we've been at it trying to get it right just since the very beginning. I think last season I was running a very, very bare bones optical production sample that they sent me to try out. And, myself and a couple of our team members were running these side by side against Swaros and the most elite kind of European brands, and everybody was blown away with how good these were. So we've had such phenomenal feedback on those, and we're really excited to be launching them this summer here. So they're just getting made right now. There have been a couple of delays with the binos just because the manufacturer that we get our glass from also at the same time produces optics for certain defense manufacturers, for drones and UAVs and missile systems. So we got to take a backseat to the ongoing concurrent wars that are happening right now, and you have to fill those contracts. But we're really excited to get those. I think we're getting confirmation in the next couple of weeks of when they're going to hit the shelves. But we're excited about those. And then the new Pro 2s are based on that optical system, and we just kind of made some improvements, lowered the TR2 reticle into the lower third of the eye box on the left barrel. We thinned out the reticle by about almost 30%. So I think 28% is the right number, but it's closer to between 20 and 30. And so we thinned out the reticle just to make it a little bit finer so you can size those targets that are a little bit farther away properly. And we added an independent reticle focus so you can focus the reticle specifically. So once you get the right sight picture between the left and right eyes and the side, the center focus, once you're looking at the target properly, then you can focus in the reticle specifically for your eyes. The reticle does still spin. I think we have about 270 degrees of rotation in the reticle itself still. And on top of that, we introduced a locking diopter in the right eye. So you can lock in your right eye diopter for your eyes and your setting for whatever it is that you're looking at. And you just click it in and it locks. So if somebody comes up to your shooting bag or your tripod and tries to mess with your binos, they're not going to know what to do. And then on top of that, we also introduced removable eye cups in the Summit ED2s and Pro 2s. So you can actually clean the lenses, clean the eye cups, spin them back on. So
But do you have an internal bubble level?
Yes. No.
Okay, I promise I'm not bringing us back to that conversation, but I have to highlight. I was going back in the comments and it was funny, and I laughed, and so I have to say it out loud. Cappy said, "Yeah, but you can't dust your buddy upside the head with a pencil case the way you can with a sock half full of real life sand." Good times, wanna bet.
You underestimate how miserable I can be.
Okay. Well, and JR with the pointed question, I'm going to bring us back to what we were just talking about again.
God.
Will you offer one in MOA?
No.
Just deadpan. No. Go.
Let me think. No.
Let's
Actually,
go to
we may. Yeah.
let's go to a more relevant question. Bobby Pew Pew is asking, the reticle spins to level. How does that work? So
Yeah. So so everybody kind of has different faiths and interpupillary widths. So I have a bit of a wider face, and somebody has a bit of a narrower face. They're going to have different eye widths. So we, as you kind of compress hinge the binoculars to fit your face, the left barrel will kind of cant. So we introduced a rotating lever, just a control for the reticle, independent reticle itself, that as you cant that particular lever left and right, it'll actually level the reticle in your eye for whatever it is that you're looking at. So, if you want a reticle sideways, you can have it sideways, or you can have it the right side up as well.
So it'd probably be more useful for those cycloptic uni-eye guys. Everyone else, like the more wide you have it, the more level it's going to be anyways, right?
It does not necessarily. So as you close, let's say you have a narrower face, as you close the binoculars into your eyes and get the eye cups aligned, then you can just use the control to level the reticle to your eyes.
Yeah.
As far as you know, is that being done in any other products, or is that an Apex innovation?
It was an Apex innovation in our 12x50 Pros. I think somebody had them in before on a 10 power bino. So I don't think we were the first ones to ever come out with it. It was already there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Another nice part of leveling that reticle is, like, for NRL when we were there, if you got your tripod set up and you weren't actually on the most stable position, because almost none of them were, you could just level the reticle quickly in your binos instead of having to mess with your tripod and play with your ball head and do all that wonderful stuff. So it is a hidden feature that I greatly enjoy.
Wait a second. I need to pause for a moment. Kurt.
Yes.
What sort of shirt are you wearing? Just a regular shirt, right?
Just a regular shirt, yeah.
Derek, what shirt are you wearing?
The best ones out there.
Mike, what shirt are you wearing?
I'm wearing a hoodie, actually, but
I am.
You see where this is going, Van.
I am proud of the ass kissery. It took me. We're 58 minutes into this episode, and I just realized you're both wearing Apex shirts and an Apex hat. Are you wearing an
Mike's
Apex
double.
hat, Derek?
No, I got the Hornady hat from NRL Hunter, the ones where they were throwing at people. So
I kind of feel like Kurt and I are losers because we're just wearing regular old clothes.
I'm not even wearing an Apex hat, so
you didn't need to. Derek and Mike are wearing them for you.
Exactly.
Wrapped. I love it.
I do have my
I not
Apex,
only enjoy the products, I own the company.
It's a hair club for men. I do have my Apex patch, so that's good. Okay, sorry, I derailed us again. Let's carry on.
Yes.
So I know you were sporting the 15x56s at the NRL Hunter, and I know Jeff and Scobie were running them. What's some kind of feedback you've got from them in that style of match? And what was your thoughts of that style of match? Because I know you were competing there.
Yeah, so first I was running the 12 Pros personally in my chest pack. But Jeff and Chris were running the 15s during the match, and then while they were ROing. And it almost had like everybody kind of, hey, take a look at these at the after they were done shooting, or to show somebody where the target was, or if they missed finding the targets, which was a very common theme that match. And yeah, the feedback on the 15s has been incredible. Honestly, like, we're blown away by it. We can't wait to get them in people's hands. So honestly, optically, I would say they're very, very close to the European offerings on the extreme high end quality.
Mm.
So they're not cheap to make, unfortunately, because we have to increase from a single extra low dispersion lens to a doublet to really increase the light transmission, clarity, chromatic aberration reduction, all that stuff. But then we also had to change to an aberconic prism, which I don't know if everybody knows necessarily is a little bit different than the back 7 or the back 4 prism, which we use on the Summit Pros and the Summit series binoculars, which is a kind of more direct light path that, you know, disperses the light less from a prismatic system. Get the increase to better coatings, and all that stuff costs money, obviously. So yeah, so there are definitely a higher quality, binocular that, you know, we're really proud to make and come out with, and we're extremely happy with the way they turned out. But then the other thing that we're, you know, the feedback that we're getting is that, you know, maybe we're not charging enough for these. So I have to rethink my pricing structure a little bit. But no, we're pretty happy with the price point as well, because I think it puts us in a very competitive position for what the product actually is. But my main feedback from the match was, man, I need integrated LRF binoculars. So that was the number one takeaway, because I was using my binoculars to spot and try to find targets. And then I had a handheld bino that I now had to relocate the targets with and tag each one. And then a lot of times I was resting one on my shooting bag on my tripod when I was trying to steady it, but then the laser was hitting the front of the bag because it kind of curled. And then, you know, all these different things that you kind of get into, you go, oh man, and I was just losing time left and right. And you just,
yeah.
And
know
time
that
is
feeling.
very critical. Yeah.
We had a question here. Bending is wondering, he says, so here's a real question. Like all of our questions haven't been real. What separates the new Apex binos from the Vortex Razor binos? We're not necessarily asking you to shit on Razor binos, obviously. But I think what he's wondering is are they even comparable? Like, are they, because the new ones are both, they have an 8 power and a 10 power, don't they?
The razors?
I think so. Like the Razor UHD, I think. I'm assuming that's what Bendy, because he says, well, sorry, he didn't actually say the new Vortex Razor Bino. So I'm not sure which one, because they make a bunch of them, don't they?
Yeah, I think they make an 18 or 17 or something as well. I don't know. I try not to like have to be an expert in everybody else's product line. I try to be fairly knowledgeable about what other companies are doing, just kind of from a market research perspective, right? But yeah, they make an 18 by 26. So, and it's 3,000 US MSRP. So yeah, I mean, the difference, I don't know. I'm not sure in what they're doing optically. I haven't taken their stuff apart, but I can speak.
And it might be a bit of an unfair question, so I whatever answer you give is fine.
Well, I think let me just take a quick peek on their specs here just to see what it is they're doing. I think obviously, being all things being equal, both have 56 millimeter objective lenses, both using Japanese glass, obviously. The only thing that I don't know if they have is they do have an aberconic prism as well. So it's kind of the same thing, right? It's just about, I guess I'll put it to you this way. It really depends on the optical design of the particular product, right? So you can have all the same ingredients. It's up to the chef on how they make the recipe, right? So somebody can execute that really, really well with the same ingredients, just as equally as somebody will do a mediocre job or a really poor job. So I haven't looked through those particular binos. I'm not sure I can speak to their quality, but I'm sure they're great. And I know that the Vortex Razor line specifically is all Japanese made as well. So I'm sure they're fantastic. So really for us, the biggest comparison that I would say from our independent testing, like independent from our internal team, but from our shooting team and everybody's had a chance to look at the 15s, I would say they're closer in quality to the Swaro EL line.
The what?
Which is pretty swanky.
Kidding.
The Swarovski EL line
Swarovski.
is what he said. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of been the feedback that we've received from people who own that particular product and have tested ours side by side. So, each one kind of might have their pros and cons. And if you get like really nitpicky in optics, you can really get some some finer kind of preference points that you can choose one over the other. But I think overall, that's probably the closest comparison from a quality and optical system perspective.
Fair point. Yep. Good
You,
answer.
you said you just got back from NRA. What was some of the weirdest requests that you've got for features you should add to your products?
Internal
Because there's
bubble
got to be.
levels.
Well, we already went over that.
Yeah.
There's got to be some gems where you just sit back and go, "Why would you ask for that?"
You know what, Mike? I'm going to be completely honest. And I would say that this NRA show, it was our first time at NRA annual meeting. They call it NRAM. And it was in Dallas, Texas. We didn't know what to expect. We were not sure what we were going into.
Mhm.
And it was probably the best gun show we've ever been to in our the history of this company.
Really?
No stupid questions that I was asked. Although one of our staff members was kind of insulted when somebody, now that I think of it, somebody came up and held one of our demo guns that had one with a Fusion Red Dot on it, and kind of holding the pistol wrong. And he's like, I don't see the dot. And Haley, who's our director of sales in the US, she goes, well, maybe you're not holding it right. No, it wasn't a gangster lean hold or anything like that, inverted, nothing like that. No, he was holding it by almost up at the top of the red dot. And he's like, I'm not seeing the dot. No, she's like, you're doing it wrong. And he looks at her and goes, are you stupid? She's like, that's what he told her. So that was
he said, are you stupid?
Yeah, and he was the one that was doing it wrong. So he literally, she showed me after how he was, his finger was blocking the emitter. Yeah, it was like, I'm like,
so he's like,
top of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thumbs over the top. Oh.
And he was like the scrawniest little guy too. Maybe I don't know, maybe they're 100 pounds soaking wet kind of thing. And
he was that guy in the movies holding the Glock with his thumb folded backwards over his other thumb so that it's blocking the slide, so that if he shoots the gun, he's going to blast himself in the thumb.
But he couldn't see the dot. So yeah.
Well, I mean, are you stupid?
That's right. Yeah. So that was a joke the rest of the weekend for us. Anytime somebody did something, it's like, are you stupid? But overall, honestly, I'm going to say I was massively impressed with the show overall. The folks from the NRA were extremely welcoming to us as a Canadian company. They made a point to come by the booth. Their board members came by the booth and thanked us for coming. And were we having a good show? Make sure it was worthwhile for us. Then they stopped by the booth, like, oh, what's that? New red dots? Show me. And a bunch of them bought red dots from us because they were impressed with the product. And then, they're like, here's my card. If you guys ever need anything from an advocacy perspective or whatever, if you have any questions about anything, just reach out. And, that was great. The clientele, the people who were at the show, extremely friendly. I know you're in the South, so you're going to get that politeness as well. But
bless your heart.
There was no bless your heart.
Well, that's more Southeast, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, we were really impressed with the NRA show. It was high quality traffic. It was a lot of traffic. It was a very busy show. Kind of died off on Saturday afternoon because Trump came in and spoke. And then there was, I think Governor Abbott from Texas also was part of the leadership forum. So not a lot of stuff, but there's still a lot of people that were there. I mean, yeah, it was a really, really good show for us, and we're already rebooked to go back. So
nice.
I'm just curious, when you got asked or when you got told if there's anything you need from us, let us know. Did you ask for them to annex Canada or Western Canada at least?
There were some hints at invasion. Yes.
Yeah.
Some hints
Please,
at
God.
invasion.
Yeah.
It's actually funny because a lot of times, we joke, they're like, "Oh, when are you guys moving down here?" Right off the bat, they'd ask us because they know what the situation up here is like.
Yeah.
But more interestingly, they look at Canada as a canary in the coal mine for them, and they see what's going on up here, and they're like, "We're just waiting for the same stuff. We're seeing signs of the same things being attempted down here." And
we're their cautionary tale.
Yeah, we are, and they're definitely watching very carefully what's going on up north. We watch their political system and their politics fairly closely, but they're watching ours as well. So
I got another question for you, and after you answer this question, I'm going to put my 2 cents in. The problem asks, so if we're asking inappropriate questions, what separates your red dots from the new Olight O-Sight?
I got a chance to play with it a little bit when I was down there. Overall, pretty nice product. I mean, to each their own. Like as a consumer, you kind of have to choose what is the best product for my application. There's some interesting innovation in from like a recharging perspective and that kind of stuff that I saw on the O-Site. I will say that the thing that I think separates our red dots a lot is the fact that we invested a lot of money in our electronics. So that's the biggest thing that I think sets us apart. First of all, our emitters are made in the USA. The LEDs are made in the USA, and all the electronic components are made in the USA. And then the glass that we use is still extra low dispersion Japanese glass lenses that go into our red dots as well. So, and then we invested a lot of R&D and international IP protection on our reticle designs. So on the Fusion specifically, that is a patent pending feature that is inside our dot and it'll never be in another dot for as long as we can have any say about it. So the fact that you can have a variable size dot, you can go between a 2.5 MOA dot and a 12.5 MOA dot for the first time in a red dot is, pretty significant. So the wider window, the bigger window on the Fusion as well, so that, I mean, they're kind of in two different classes. The feedback that we received from anybody who's ever looked at our emitter system is that this is the best emitter that they've ever seen in a red dot. And it's from people who've been shooting dots for 30 years or people who've been selling dots for 20 years and large integrators in both the civilian and law enforcement space. So we're pretty happy with the way those turned out. So, in comparison, I played with that O-Site for a few minutes when I was down there. I didn't really have a lot of time to leave the booth, but I kind of went, oh, what is that? Because I actually hadn't heard of it until we were down at the NRA show. And I think it's nice. I mean, for the price point, I think it's a very nice product. And they did a pretty decent job with it. And I mean, to Carly's point, I know she just commented on the thing that they are currently national championship winning red dots in PCC here in Canada. Our sponsored team of Mel and Taylor independently won the IPSC nationals. I think he got top overall and she got top lady. So with the Fusion,
yeah, it just goes to
that's
prove.
what it was made for. So
you got the Fusion and the Atom. Explain what the two differences are and what kind of categories you'd put them in for purposes. So
yeah, so the Fusion is kind of intentionally made for competition shooting, but it can be used for any scenario. Obviously, lots of people are in the States especially are wanting to put them on their carry guns. A lot of people are just wanting to have it on their regular gun. You can put it on a shotgun, you can put it on a carbine, a PCC, obviously. But the Atom was more made as a specific carry optic in the US or places where it is allowed by law. It was made to go on a turkey hunting shotgun. It's made to go on defensive shotguns, whatever you want to do, right? So it's more of the Atom is more of our general purpose red dot. The main differentiator being the reticle offerings in each one, right? So the Fusion has that 5 selection option of you can cycle through the different reticles. The Atom has only 3, where it's like just the 2 MOA dot and 34 MOA circle, and then the hash marks on the sides. So you can just have kind of 3 options of how you want to run that. We find that the empty circle with no dot is super popular with shotgunners. So like guys who shoot a lot of shotguns, especially turkeys, they'll put the Atom on there and just have the circle with the hash marks, and they kind of know what they're spread for depending on the choke that they're shooting, right? So
yeah, good point.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one right there. And then the thing that they do share in common is that they're both 7075 aluminum housings, side loading battery, RMR footprint, shake awake, auto sleep, all that kind of stuff. And the emitter system and electronics are the same in both. The main differentiator is that the Atom actually has our smart light technology, which has a sensor in the very front of the optic placed so that it senses how much light is coming in towards the user. So it's not mounted on the sides or anything like that. That whatever it is that you're pointing at is going to detect the light that's coming from there and then automatically attenuates the dot brightness.
Oh, wow.
The Fusion doesn't have that because it's meant specifically for competition.
Yeah. That is definitely a nice feature because one of my major complaint about most red dots is like, oh, that's too dim right now. Oh, that's too bright right now. I gotta change that right now. I don't have the time.
So the fusion, obviously, you might have mentioned it, and I might have missed it because I've been trying to get in and out of the chat and listen to you at the same time. But did you talk about the weather shield on the fusion? Because it's only fits on the fusion, right? Not the atom.
No, they both have their own weather shield. Yeah. So
Oh,
the
they
weather
do
shield,
both have their own.
I forgot to talk about. So thank you for bringing that up. But so the
Okay.
weather shield is kind of
Sorry,
tailor-made
just
for each
sorry.
object.
I don't mean to cut you off, but just before you do, the reason I'm asking that is because Bobby Pew Pew was saying the fusion is pretty big. Is it still suitable for a pistol? And I was wondering, is he looking at it with the weather shield on it or not? But anyway, carry on.
I will say yes, it's definitely designed for pistols. I actually have it mounted on my Shadow 2 right now as a carry optics category for USPSA or production optics for IPSC. So it can be direct mounted, it can be rail mounted. PIC rail adapter is available for it. Conversion plates are available from many vendors, and we're looking at getting into like an RMSE to RMR conversion plate as well. So that's that. The weather shields themselves, the Fusion, there's one available for the Fusion, there's one available for the Atom. They're different shapes overall because the window height size and all that kind of stuff, so it's not interchangeable. But I think they're going to be like 50 or 75 bucks or something like that to get on there. And the nice thing about them is that they fit nice and tight, even without the screws. It just clips right in, and then the two stout screws in the back on the sides. It's side attached, and it holds it in place, and you can keep shooting in inclement weather. And you can protect that emitter so it doesn't starburst or get obstructed by little water droplets or anything, or lint or whatever it may be.
Sorry, I just wanted. So I think you already mentioned it, but I think me and 1AB might have missed it. He said Vortex red dots. Oh, sorry, Vortex. Ugh. He said Vortex red dots don't have shake awake, and I'm answering him. I'm like, Vanja said that they do, but that's not Vortex. That's the Apex red dots. Does anybody know if the Vortex does have shake awake, or any of the Vortex red dots have shake awake?
I think the new Defender might.
Okay.
It might. I haven't looked at it too close, but
to what you were talking about with the Fusion and the Atom as to whether they're for pistols or for PCCs or whatever. Tell me if this is an accurate statement or not. It does seem to me like if you're running a full size pistol, the Fusion would be perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. But if you have like a Glock 26 and you want to put a red dot on it, we're talking about people in the States now, obviously, because they've always been prohibited in Canada. But like a compact pistol, you might want to put an Atom on it. It is a little smaller.
That's the intent. Like the intent of the Atom is to be an option for carry or an option for rifle or a general pistol shooting, just plinking with a pistol or whatever, your shotgun, PCC. A lot of times we at trade shows will have an AR or carbine mounted up with the 1-10 edge rifle scope on top, and then a side 45 offset mount with an Atom on it. So it's a great option for a near zero red dot for either around the corner shooting or leaning into around a barricade or whatever.
Beauty. I've got a question from Bending, but it has nothing to do with Apex. But what weight pistol red dots? He misunderstood. I wasn't saying that red dots are prohibited. Compact pistols with barrels less than 4 1/4 inches have always been prohibited.
Mm-hmm. And we can't carry in Canada.
And we can't carry in Canada either. Yeah, so that whole concealability is kind of counterproductive to our laws.
I do have some commentary around that from Texas, though. That's for sure.
Oh, I have no doubt of that.
Mm-hmm. Lots of gentlemen carrying pistols openly at the NRA show, which was wild to me considering like we've been to like SHOT Show and other shows like that in the States.
And they don't allow that.
No, you're not allowed any of that. So it was definitely a bit of a, oh wait, you can do that now? That's cool. And then I think some guy handed Carly a loaded pistol, like, here, check this out. Like one in the chamber.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate though, because that's exactly the type of thing that, the people who say that shouldn't be a thing, that's exactly what they're talking about. You see these videos coming out of the States on YouTube. It's like, I see a gun stores will put this on their YouTube channel. So they make these videos of like what not to do when you walk into our store. Don't take a loaded fucking pistol out of your holster and hand it to us or put it on the counter. Like that's just an idiotic.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like gun safety around pistols has always been around like, before you take your pistol out of the holster, like make sure you clear the chamber, and then put it back down. You know, it's just kind of the black badge training in me, right? So, yeah.
Well, it is different in the U.S. You know, there's like black badge ain't mandatory.
No, it's not. Well, gun safety isn't mandatory for the most part, right? So
That's true. Yeah. Move to Toronto, concealed carry 24/7.
legally, right?
Yeah. Hey, you want to do a little bit of politics?
Oh, sure, always.
Sorry, guys.
So a long time ago, Jonathan Bergen was asking, what percentage of law enforcement or veterans do you think will think about taking up the confiscating job for the government?
Oh, with the new announcement in the last couple of days here?
Well, I think that's kind of what he's getting at. That the Canadian government wants to spend $1 quadrillion hiring anybody and their dog to confiscate firearms.
I heard they're paying pretty good money.
It appears so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's going to go very well.
Do you think that they'll get a lot of voluntary law enforcement participation?
Current law enforcement or retired?
Either. Let's talk about both.
I don't know. I think the guys who are currently in right now, I don't know if they're going to have a choice unless they're like if their boss tells them this is what we're doing, right? So
Fair.
A lot of people have a lot of things to lose, so I don't know if they're going to want to do it, but yeah, I think I saw 140K was the upper limit for the jobs for the confiscation agents.
Sorry, 40K?
140K.
140K for a year of confiscation.
Yeah.
That's what your soul costs nowadays, 140K.
Yeah.
I look at it this way. It's like telling a vegan to run a barbecue. It's kind of contrary to a system of belief.
Are they going to clear the guns
part.
before they ship them back to the government?
Before they hand you a loaded pistol?
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you stupid?
You know what concerns me about this, though, is, we can all speculate on who would or wouldn't in whatever organization or with a background in whatever organization. But do we forget about some of the leaked conversations that we heard from RCMP officers during a certain peaceful protest in this country?
Oh, the Ottawa Bouncy Castle Festival.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Or certain floods that happened in Alberta a bunch of years ago.
Or that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I dip my head into the chat for a second and I come back and I hear about bouncy castles, so I have no idea what's happening in the conversation right now.
I think we need to give Chris blinders.
yeah.
One thing at a time.
It sounds like an interesting conversation. I dipped out at exactly the wrong time to answer a question of Bendings, but okay. I want to. I had a poignant question that was relevant to our topic
sure it
for
was
the first
profound.
time in my history. Oh man, it was so profound. Oh, I wanted to talk about because people seem to. Maybe they are, maybe we're just not talking about, maybe they're actually forgetting about it. Saskatchewan and Alberta governments both have said that they have taken steps to prevent any type of confiscation from happening in those two provinces. What do you guys,
Yes.
do you guys think that that's still going to be a thing? Is that
Did that go
enforceable?
on? But did that go beyond the motion? Like I've heard nothing since.
Yeah, neither have I. It was passed in
Right.
legislation, but there was really no regulation or action to take because
Or-
they just kept
right.
extending the amnesty at that time.
Well,
Yeah,
I can't
so-
speak for Saskatchewan, but I know in Alberta they did pass it, and I think it
They did in
was
Saskatchewan as well.
yeah. But I think what they're talking about is a licensing scheme for confiscation agents, right? That the Alberta government, I think they're trying to put up a massive barrier to entry for anybody who the federal government is trying to get to come into Alberta and take people's guns away.
Mhm.
So I think they're trying to be like, hey, well, let's introduce a bureaucratic nightmare for you if you even attempt to do this.
Yeah.
Well,
it
really,
seems
that's
like
the only option, isn't it?
Yeah.
It does seem like the only way to do it that would have some teeth. Saskatchewan, if I remember correctly, Saskatchewan was essentially just saying like, we'll cut our portion of the RCMP's funding if they do, which is, it seems a bit like an empty threat because, you know, we're talking about the same sort of province that, you know, people don't believe in defunding the police, but now we're talking about defunding the police if they participate in a federal program that we don't agree with. So I don't know. I don't know about our approach and how effective it would really be if it came right down to it.
I would just
Yeah,
never
well, most of this
underestimate
stuff is
the government's
posturing
ability.
anyway.
Sorry, there
Sorry,
were two
Mike.
people there.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead,
I
Mike.
think there's a delay with mine. Just never underestimate the government's ability to be incompetent, because if you look at that, the recent with Sable Island out in Vancouver, how the original price was a lot more than what we initially found out. I think it was up to 12 million that it cost to shoot 80 deer, not
Yeah.
800,000.
Well, helicopter fuel is expensive.
Well, yeah, and you got to pay New Zealanders. Like, you couldn't have picked anyone from the furthest part of the world to fly to Canada to come shoot deer
Come shoot deer suppressed out of a helicopter
with an AR.
With an AR with full magazine capacity.
And we had to pay to train them to do it.
I man, when that happened, I thought I thought that it was going to get more media traction than it did. But when the one of the chiefs of the local First Nations in the area basically stood up and said, like, shit, like our people would have done that for free. Just give us the meat.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like,
They did.
12 or 16 million, whatever.
So do you know what the
12
government
million.
response was
12
to
million?
that?
What was it?
You're not as competent of a hunter, so shooting deer on the run from a helicopter is more ethical than having First Nations hunters cull deer on the island.
What a hypocritical stance.
They said
What
it's
a hypocritical
like,
stance.
they're going to get better kill shots basically from whatever these New Zealanders are doing as opposed to First Nation hunters.
First of all, not fucking true. You're firing from a helicopter. Second of all, like, man, it was just like 3 weeks ago. I'm listening to Stephen Guilbeault, the fucking Greenpeace activist that's our environment minister, talking about how we need to give control of our environmental agenda in Canada back to the First Nations because they're the true stewards of our wilderness land. But at the same time, they're incompetent hunters. What? How the fuck does that happen?
There was a mortality rate. 20% of the deer that they actually shot were the wrong deer to begin with.
Well, that too. The New Zealanders, the contract killers.
Yes.
Oh my god. You know what? Good on those New
It had
Zealanders.
4 legs, so I started blasting.
So I started blasting. Everything those guys have gone through in their own country for the last couple of years, good on them for bagging a contract where they can shoot full capacity from a helicopter, No hate for the actual guys doing it, just
personally
the fact
kind of
that the
jealous,
government
actually.
let it happen. Yeah, exactly.
Is New Zealand offering a reciprocity of some sort deal for Canadians to go down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have any Kiwis in the chat?
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah. But back to the point about whether the government's a good, I guess, facilitator for something like this. I would say no, they don't. I mean, incompetence one thing, but there's a sheer determination there to do this on their end, right? And they want to do it ahead of the 2025 election. They've already scheduled things to kind of line up with the election period. So they want to claim a W of some sort. They want to claim a win.
And I think the motivation is more now there because it's been on the back burner, and the current federal government knows that they're on a steep decline. So they need to make moves, and they need to make them big, and they need to make them quickly.
What do you think is the biggest win for them, politically speaking? Again, how do they get momentum back? The firearms file, right? Bring it back
I
to
don't
the
know if that's
forefront.
going to do it though.
Of course, it's not going to do it. It'll
Yeah.
work on some percentage of people for sure, but no.
And
It's
I
a
don't
deflection.
think, yeah, and I don't think that even the dipshits who have been supporting them for the last 8 years, even they, I don't think are going to be over, like the ones who are against them now, are going to be swayed back by the firearms file when housing and the economy and is what
Crime
has pulled them away. Crime rates is what has pulled them away in the first place.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, cost
the
of
gun
living.
argument is getting a little bit weak, given they've taken so much action on the gun issue, and crime just continues to go up. I just don't see that pulling those people back.
I don't know if there's a path back to them. I think I was reading an article today that said, will he or won't he quit? There's a lot of people are
I don't think he
speculating
will.
he's going to step down ahead of the election, but I don't see him doing that personally.
Yeah, just the level of
Post-election.
narcissism. Post-election, sure, but he won't have a choice post-election.
Yes. Yeah, at that point, his office will already be packed for him.
Yeah.
So,
And he'll go home to a house where his wife is not living any longer. Poor guy.
You have to
That
go
was
there.
a cheap
didn't you?
shot. It was a cheap shot. No, it's a cheap shot I'm willing to take.
Yeah.
I
fair.
have
mean,
never had a level of personal hatred for anyone in politics like I do for that man. He made it personal for me. That's never
sure did.
happened before in my life.
Well, it's kind of funny when somebody, takes this group of citizens and makes them the boogeyman, and tries to demonize an entire group of people who are, factually speaking, the safest and most law-abiding group in the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but it's not just that. Like, sorry, I cut you off, Savannah. And I'm sorry, I'm terrible at that. It's not just that we're gun owners. That he has made this personal. He's made this personal because we're gun owners. He's made this personal because we're business owners. He's made this personal because we're middle class. He's made this personal because we're friggin' white and we're male. Like, he has made this personal on so many levels. He has tried to turn the rest of the Canadian population against us on so many individual levels that it can't help but be personal.
That's your toxic masculinity talking, honestly.
It is. That is absolutely my toxic masculinity speaking. And God damn it, I want. Yeah, never mind. I was going to say something that I was going to regret.
Well, I don't know about you, but I had my steak and whiskey before I came here, so that's.
I'm going to have mine after. And I'm going to go. I'm going to walk outside, and I'm going to objectify the first female that I see.
Yeah.
Man, I hope my wife doesn't listen to this episode. I'll get the lecture. The lecture I always get is, I know that you're joking. Everyone else doesn't know that you're joking. I'm joking, just in case anyone's wondering.
But what's kind of funny about that though is so the last point about racist, misogynist, white dudes, whatever in this industry, this and that. I've never once seen any kind of, I guess, mistreatment of any minority or women in shooting sports or anything like that. It's always been people outside of the community that project that into the community. And the shooting community has always been the most inclusive and the most welcoming. It's like, oh, you want to be one of us? I don't care what you look like. I don't care if you have purple hair or what you're wearing for jeans or whatever else. Just come. Let's share this activity together, right? It's like the more the merrier has always been kind of the approach, right, that I've seen in every discipline. So I don't know. It's they try to paint us as that, but I don't think it's sticking very well. So.
But you know what? Like, it's not just that the gun industry is inclusive. As long as you like guns, you're cool with us. But it's not just that. It's that there is an active, how would you say, enforcement of the fact that that's okay. Like it is a community where if somebody, because there's a small segment in every community, so when somebody does try to shit on women or shit on, ethnic minorities with guns, it is a community that will actively come to their defense.
100%.
And that's different than just acceptance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at what is the YouTube the gun-toting girlfriend, I think, is like an LGBT gun YouTuber, and what they do is literally like trying to bring other LGBT people into the gun community. And I know like what Ian Gun Jesus has done segments with them in the past. Like here, come on my channel. Let's give you a boost, right? Like that's shooting.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting effect there that happens when people come into the shooting communities that were never in it before, and they had either preconceived notions or they knew nothing about it, and they come in and they kind of have an entirely different experience than they thought they would, and then they learn about the personal responsibility aspect of owning a firearm. Especially in Canada, they talk about the daily background check piece and the licensing piece and responsibility and safe storage and safe transport and all that kind of stuff. And then I think they start to have an entirely different outlook on the gun owner community as a large, because they now realize that, man, like I'm part of this group now that takes this very, very seriously, that is checked daily, that, you can't sidestep on the police. You can't talk back really, and you might lose all your guns if you have a negative encounter with a cop one day and they decide to, do something about it. I think I've heard lots of stories, first person stories where they tell us, I never used to own guns before, and I was so and so, and these were my political predispositions. But as soon as I got into this community, my mind started to change on a lot of this stuff, because they saw it from the inside now, and it was an entirely different kind of perspective and worldview. And I really kind of appreciate hearing some of those things, because that's kind of my personal experience too, to a certain degree, because I wasn't a gun owner until about 12, 13 years ago, and now I'm all in. But
you sure are.
but I think there's also another interesting aspect, that people who own firearms are generally, and this is a very blanket statement, so forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but I would say that most people that own firearms are generally predisposed to being more libertarian in kind of thinking, which is leave me alone, I leave you alone, let me do my thing, you do your thing. And that's where that acceptance piece comes in, because you can't apply that to only firearms. You have to apply that methodology and that kind of way of thinking to everybody's entire way of life, right? So whether it's sexual orientation, identity, whatever, right? Race, and it doesn't matter. It should apply to all of that, right? Which is, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, and great.
Well, I think that's part of why Justin Trudeau has been such a bad thing for this country. And by the way, I remember in 2016, I was telling people like Justin Trudeau is just the anti-Trump. He's going to cause just as much division. He's going to cause just as many problems. Yeah. It's just on the other side of the spectrum. And I remember 2015, 2016, maybe even 2017, maybe even as late as 2018, there used to be a liberal gun owners Facebook group. And I remember when people from that group would come onto the CCFR Facebook page and say, hey, like, we're not all assholes. Like I remember one time a guy comes on, he's like, can you guys just stop calling people libtards? Cause like I'm a liberal and I agree with you. And I don't even know if that Facebook page exists anymore. I certainly haven't heard from it in over 6 or 7 years. So you have to ask yourself, well, why would groups like that start disappearing? Is it maybe because people are now ashamed to call themselves liberals? I know, like, I used to be in the early days of the show, back when we were first Focal Plane podcast, I used to be very open about saying like, hey, I have almost never voted conservative in my entire life. And like, I don't consider myself much of a liberal voter anymore. NDP
Chris,
either.
That's kind of, I mean, I've voted conservative almost my entire life, but since I started voting, but the big thing for me has always been about, where do you find yourself represented the most, right? And I'm generally like fairly liberal on a lot of different social topics. The big thing for me is that where that libertarian piece comes in, which now is like, I think a lot of liberals in the US are not calling themselves liberals anymore. They're calling themselves like liberal classic almost, right? Which is what
Yeah.
it used to be back like 30 years ago. Because the new liberal is an entirely different species now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And since we're talking about equality as well, we should talk about how the gun, like women are like one of, if not the biggest growing segment of,
100%.
of shooting in Canada. And there is events specifically for women that are massively popular that are happening all the time. Like, for example, tomorrow, May 25th, 2024, at the, is it Genesee? Is that how you pronounce it? Range and Shooting
Yeah.
Sports Park at Edmontoniaburg. And registration is between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. The first orientation starts at 9 a.m. Shooting is from 9:15 to 4 p.m. and it is only $75. That includes the use of firearms, ammo for a rifle, pistol, and shotgun, as well as lunch and prize draws. So you can come check it out. It is the fastest growing sport in Canada. It is focusing on PRS, and at Western, you can do it at Western Canada's premier shooting range. Although that is actually a lie, because Rooster Ranch is the Western Canada's premier shooting range. There, there
In
is
parts
no.
unknown.
I'm literally reading this off the poster. There is no license, meaning PAL, or previous experience necessary. Safety gear is provided. There is one-on-one supervised shooting. For information and registration, you can contact Ladies Day at historical-arms.com. For those of you who are not Gen X or later early millennial and don't know what a hyphen is, it's historical-arms.com. And the shooting range is south of the River Bridge on Highway 770. Just turn west at Range Road 30A and follow the signs. What an
Simple as
old
that.
school description that is, hey?
Mhm.
Yeah, well, turn left at the cow, right?
Exactly.
And I did
If
get
you
that
hit,
description one time driving in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, so
yeah, if you hit Red Deer, you've gone too far.
yeah. You know, those ladies days are amazing because they get literally women who have never shot before or were kind of curious about shooting, and they got them to try these out for the first time. And they have the best time ever. And a lot of these women go and get their pals. They
Mm-hmm.
drag their families to get pals and their kids, and if they're of
Mm-hmm.
age, right? And so we always say, and we say this quite a bit with like some of our industry peers, is that if you can get the wife or the girlfriend shooting, you can get the whole family shooting. So you make it a family experience. You get everybody out of the range together. I know like Carly and I started shooting together, but you know, our girls love going to the range. They're like 3 and 4. So they pick up brass and whatever, and they just love being at the range. But it's one of those things that if you introduce families to it, it's an amazing lifelong hobby, right? And yeah, it gets expensive, but what doesn't anymore?
Yeah,
And
hobbies are expensive. We already covered that.
Don't get me started on fucking shooting bags again.
But women are the
Chris.
fastest growing demographic in this sport. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And like you said, a lot of times they're the decision maker for what the family is going to do.
Yeah.
And frankly, even if you introduce people to guns and they don't become gun owners themselves, they're a little bit more educated when somebody tries to feed them a line of bullshit.
Yeah.
They start to think, well, wait a second. Like I shot that gun and that 223 didn't give me PTSD. Like that's a weird claim, you know?
Like I saw the little tiny bullet. There's no way that blows the hole in the side of a deer the size of my fist.
Yeah, exactly. And I fired a 9mm pistol, and it didn't take the lungs out of anything, let alone, yeah, yeah.
Maybe a grouse.
Take the lungs out of a grouse.
I don't know if I
Yeah.
ever told you guys the stories of my hunting partners and I on an elk hunt, and we came back empty, and we came upon a bunch of grouse, and all they had was their 30-06s.
Oh, headshots,
Not shots. It's like 10 yards in.
Hmm.
headshots, and they still only had the legs to eat.
Hmm.
Oh, and that's right, Jonathan Bergen. And we do need our 22 gauges for moose hunting.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that
Black
is
bear
endorsed.
and ptarmigan.
That is endorsed by the Liberal government, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, and Pam Damoff said that AR-15s liquefy organs. Yeah.
Someone's liquefied her fucking brains.
I love how Rooster's just been
Get-
sitting there quiet for the last 30 minutes. And that's
I
just
got
Stewing.
such a fucking headache, man. But some of this shit triggers me.
well,
Like, get off the crack, you old hag.
Oh yeah, one AB brought it up that reminder that June 1st is National Range Day in Canada. So
I wanted to talk about that.
yes.
Go ahead, Derek.
Oh, I just brought it up as a point, you know. If you're part of your local range, go out, volunteer, help, whatever. That's the day.
Has the CCFR been pushing that this year? Because I haven't seen anything.
They have been pushing it, but when they originally came up with it, they didn't want it to just be the CCFR.
Yeah.
Because then, we're a CSSA range, we're an NFA range, we don't want to participate. They wanted to make it's
Neutral.
just National Range Day.
And that's
doesn't matter
exactly
who-
what happened the first 1 or 2 years, I think.
Yeah, again,
This
some
is the
ranges
third year, right?
we don't. Yeah,
So
Third-
they're
third
just
year.
trying to be quiet about it because I worry that without nobody else is pushing it because it was still the CCFR's idea. So the CSSA is not pushing it. I don't see NFA pushing it, but I haven't seen the CSCFR pushing it this year either. And I don't know how many people are.
I think everybody needs to push it.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
I
even
agree.
even if it doesn't happen exactly, even the concept of a range day doesn't have to be June 1st exactly. Is what we need. Local clubs, local ranges getting together. Here's our open house day.
Yeah.
Come
And
check
there's
it
a
out.
few issues with hosting them though.
There is,
How do you
unfortunately.
mean? How do you mean? Political issues? You mean?
Old boys club, first thing, very hard to deal with. If you've never dealt with it, I recommend it just so you can see my point.
Oh, I know what she's talking about there, boy.
I think everyone knows and getting volunteers is also the biggest thing. Nobody wants to volunteer for anything anymore. So I was like, why isn't anyone doing it? I'm like, you can do it. Oh no, but I'm not going to do it. Somebody else needs to do it. That's a big problem I've seen is volunteerism. Because I've actually tried to have National Range Days before.
At your club?
At our club, we did do one at the Shotgun Club, which was nice because then I like seeing trap grow because I actually shoot trap in my off time, the odd time. It's quite fun.
Yeah.
So, promote something and try to get it going. But it's going to take work. Tell people that right now.
For sure, yeah. So it looks like I'm just on the National Range Day locator. So Regina Fish and Game is. That's a good news. I would have expected that, though. Regina Wildlife Federation. I'm kind of looking at Saskatchewan. I don't know why, because it's only me in Curtin, Saskatchewan.
Well,
yeah, it looks like
you guys are on the border a little bit there, right?
Mike is.
Mike
anyway.
is.
Mike,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, to Curly's point, on the first 2 National Range Days, there was a Saprol match the weekend that year, there was some match going on that we were all away for, and we're like, oh man, I guess we're not at a range, but we're kind of celebrating National Range Day, so perfect, right? Because we're at a shooting competition, so it was kind of like in the spirit of that. But one of the things that we always try to do, I used to volunteer at our club for a ladies' day open house that they had, which is Annie Oakley Day at Buffalo Target Shooters, and that was a great little event that started by 2 ladies of the club who just wanted to do something like that, right? To introduce more women into shooting. And then there's they have a general open house every year and kids come in and shoot for free. And they have a barbecue and they have games and prizes and they just make it a fun family event kind of day. And that's the kind of stuff that I love seeing because doesn't have to be anything super formal, but the fact that there is a National Range Days that all these clubs can coordinate and celebrate the sport and shooting sports and kind of that recreational aspect of it on the same day every year. It's almost like trying to make it like a national holiday. I think that's a great idea. So
Yeah.
because I think it also shows everybody that, you have these many rounds popping off at all these licensed ranges across the country, and not a single incident, knock on wood, has occurred, right? It just tells you how safe of a sport this is. The safety is the
Coincidentally,
number
just
one
like the
most
start of
paramount
every
thing.
hunting season.
Yep. Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah. But on a regular day in Toronto,
CCW.
yeah, exactly. Vanya, what have we not talked about? Have we missed anything that we need to talk about?
Well, there's nothing I can talk about really apart from that yet. There's some really exciting things that we're working on that I can't wait to share with you guys, but we're not.
I know
quite
somebody
there
was
yet.
asking about a spotting scope earlier. I can't remember who was asking it,
We-
but I don't even know
we're-
if you can say anything.
We're dabbling. We're trying to figure out if that's something that we want to do. We've got a lot of spotting scopes sitting at the office. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But it's not. I don't know yet. It's. I'm conflicted. Let's put it that way. Because we've always been kind of a company that feels like spotting binoculars are the trend. That we kind of try to reinstitute that trend and try to drive that trend. And there's some companies that are now following us on that trend, which we're very happy to see. But I don't know. We'll see. We're working on it. We're thinking about it.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think the spotting binos are the way to go too. That was definitely one thing I picked up from NRL Hunter is I was just running the 10 powers, and I found that a higher magnification would have definitely been beneficial for spotting in that event. So, and
Well, the
minimum 12.
Targets were tiny.
Yes. So that 15 would have been a lot nicer than a 10.
Yeah.
So
The one thing that is interesting is that when kind of you start going from like 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 to 17, whatever, that field of view just narrows so much. And it's finding that sweet spot. Like everything else is a balancing act in optics, right? So no MOA.
No MOA.
like Carly said, the red dots, they're an MOA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You got two options for MOA right there.
Yeah, Atom Infusion, the only Apex products that come in MOA right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're the first, but they won't be the last.
And if you put a magnifier on it, you can even have a magnified MOA
Mm-hmm.
Apex.
You sure can. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a bunch of things in the works. There's some really cool, innovative stuff that we're doing that nobody else has, and we're in the process of filing all the patents for all that stuff before I can even discuss it, because my lawyers would slap me upside the head if I talked about it yet. So, because the problem is the moment you disclose it, this clock starts ticking, and then you only have so much time to claim it. So,
Yeah.
but it's going to be interesting because the stuff that we're working on, I think, will change some of the sport for sure. So, hopefully for the better.
Now, some of those ideas for innovation, like what's your muse, or do you have a group of people? What's kind of the process?
A lot of times I take all the credit and I say I got it all, I figured it all out, and I thought of it all. A lot of times it comes
strategy
from our corporate team, right? Like we think about things like what's missing, but the biggest thing that we always do is we pull our shooting team and we go, hey guys, like what do you think of this? And if we were to go down this path, what would be the most effective use of resources and time and features and et cetera, et cetera. So with some of the products that we're developing, we'll kind of pointedly ask certain guys that are kind of specialists in that particular sport or in that field. And then I go to matches and I start talking to people, and then I just listen. Because the best thing to do is always in any kind of thing is I learned this as a book that I was reading about spycraft. If you just let people talk, they'll tell you so much more than if you ever ask them to. So
You were reading,
people love to fill the void of conversation. So even at the NRL Hunter match a couple of weeks ago, I was chatting with a guy, and they're like, "Oh, you guys thinking about this?" And I was like, "Yeah, we're working on something. I can't quite talk about it just yet." And I don't know if you guys were there or not for that, but the guy's like, "Oh, well, have you thought about this? And you thought about that?" And he like gave me like 4 product ideas like right there on the spot. And I was like, "Well, we're already doing 3 out of 4 of those." In my mind, I'm like, but that last one, I'm like, that's actually a pretty good idea. I don't know if we thought about that yet, but I'll have to go back to the engineers and double check.
Have you been reading the book you're referring to? You reading Never Split the Difference?
I can't remember what it's called. I think it was actually just called Spycraft. I can't remember. But yeah.
Oh, so you weren't reading Chris Voss?
No, it was like a non-fiction. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It was like How to Be a Spy.
How to be a spy. Well, yeah, I
Wait,
guess
is
Chris
Vanya
Voss
a
wasn't
double
spy.
agent?
No,
Dun, dun, dun.
horrible at that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's but it's interesting, right? And that's the kind of stuff that we always take back from the field back into like when we go to design a product. And so, what are the things that we should be doing with this? One of the big differentiators for us as a company is what sets our products apart. Like, I don't want to just come out with a spotting scope that everybody else already has, for example, right? So if I make a spotter, if we're going to put one out as Apex, like what sets it apart from, here's another spotting scope with ED glass. Great. Maybe we put our own reticle in it that's close to either the CLR or the TR2 or some mix in between. Great. That's a differentiator. Enough. Is it enough? I don't know. Maybe. But there has to be something with it that I want to do something always that somebody hasn't done yet. And I think that's an important thing for us as a company to kind of always strive for.
Like a Bluetooth speaker. Like a Bluetooth speaker.
A Bluetooth speaker? Yeah, why not?
Exactly.
Just rock it. Yeah.
Yep. Jamming.
Bluetooth
watching.
speaker in your optics?
Yeah. You use it to call coyotes. Think about it.
That sounds about as useful as internal bubble level. Look at Rooster right now. He's just like
I hate you guys so much right now.
if he's gonna hang himself in his closet pretty soon. Okay.
No, I can't. I still have too much debt. Not allowed to die.
Okay. Fair point.
Still have too much ammo to load.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should.
Who's going to clean Jens's barrels if I do that?
Vanya, plug all the things where people can find Apex Optics.
Find us on apexoptics.co. Find us on Instagram under apex_optics and Facebook, Apex Optics. So yeah, any of the socials, definitely you can find us there. You can sign up for our mailing list as well on the website itself. And then you can be notified when we have new stuff going on. If there's any sales happening, which there's probably going to be a sale in probably July 1st, Freedom Weekend. We usually like to throw one out there at that time.
Yep.
We're getting a restock of Rival X's here in about a week. So they're right on schedule for once. Woohoo. And we got, new Hunters are in stock, Edges are in stock. We're getting more stuff here with the Rival X's shipping as well. So we're going to be well stocked up.
Wonderful.
And all those products we talked about are on pre-sale right now on the website.
That's right.
So
yeah.
So if you want to be the first to get them, plug that credit card number in.
Yeah. We decided to do a pre-sale.
Derek's getting a kickback for sure.
No, that is not our arrangement.
Yes. Oh,
Derek's just hoping that'll be the arrangement.
Yeah, exactly. But we are working on so like the key point about the pre-sale is if you do want it, make sure you pre-order it because the demand from our dealers for the 15 binos and the red dots has been significant. So we're wanting to make sure that we gave our existing customers an opportunity to reserve those units before they went out to the wider dealer base. So what was the question about the LRS products?
Oh, it was just a comment. There was no question. He just said that you're coming up with an LRF spotter with a DOF Bluetooth to Kestrel, and of course it doubles as the Bluetooth speaker. He forgot to mention the internal bubble level, but I'm sure that was just a
typo.
Or a typo. Yeah. Okay, well, Vanya, thanks for coming on. Everybody else, if you're still watching us, make sure you give the thumbs up, like, subscribe, all the above. It really does help feed the algorithm. And hey, have you ever considered sharing an episode of the show on your social media? What would happen? Let's find out. Go ahead and share us and see what happens. Tell us what happens. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/BS podcast. Actually, it's facebook.com/BS podcast.ca. I just realized that like today. And you can leave a review on our page if you want to let us know how we're doing. If you like the content, please leave a page like and a share, as I just mentioned. You can email us if you want at info@bspodcast.ca. Let us know what we're doing well. Let us know where we suck. Let us know what you want to see. And as usual, a massive thank you to all of our sponsors and our listeners. Without you guys, we would just be four guys talking on the internet about idiotic things because Vanja wouldn't even join us if we weren't on the air. And we are specifically talking about Shane and Steve, Miles, Carey, Cappy, Duncan and Rob, Phil, Doug and Nisa, Vanja and Carly, Oscar and JR. Thank you all an immeasurable amount. Is that it? Are we done? Is it home time?
Yeah, I think we said our thank yous, our goodbyes. Thank you again, Vanja. And Charlie in the comment section. Yes.
And stay tuned, everybody, next week when we tackle more important life questions that nobody was asking in the first place. See ya.
Because I have a shotgun and rifle that I use for, and 22 gauge that I use for ptarmigan, moose, and black bear.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
You're listening to your weekly dose of BS, Ballistically Speaking. The Ballistically Speaking Podcast.